You know, from the frozen streets of Europe to the tropical heat of Southeast Asia, from ancient quiet rituals to massive modern spectacles, there's this invisible thread that connects pretty much every culture on Earth. So let's follow that thread together on a journey through some of the planet's most incredible celebrations.
But this isn't just going to be a list of parties, right? This is really an exploration of a fundamental human need. This need we have to mark time, to connect with each other, and to find meaning and joy in our lives. We celebrate faith, we celebrate harvests, we celebrate history, and sometimes we celebrate just for the sheer thrill of being alive. So what do these celebrations actually look like, and what do they really tell us about ourselves?
We're going to start with a theme that you see pop up everywhere in almost every culture: the triumph of light over darkness, of good over evil. These are the festivals that literally light up the darkest times of the year, and they bring with them this really profound sense of hope and renewal.
Our first stop is Diwali, an absolutely massive festival celebrated by over 1 billion people. At its heart, you've got the story of Lord Rama returning home after defeating the demon king Ravana. I mean, it is the ultimate story of good conquering evil, and it's a story told not with words, but with just an explosion of light.
The whole celebration builds in these really beautiful stages. It actually starts quietly, days beforehand, with a deep cleanse of the entire home. And the belief is pretty simple. If your house isn't clean, Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, she's not going to come in. Then the art appears. Doorways get decorated with these intricate, colorful patterns called rangoli, and as dusk falls, millions of tiny clay lamps called diyas are lit. The whole thing peaks with this deafening, joyous barrage of fireworks meant to chase away evil spirits before families all share boxes of delicious sweets.
And this is just a perfect example of a universal theme, right? The story of defeating some kind of evil force isn't unique to Diwali at all. In fact, it's the perfect bridge to our next festival, which also has its roots in fighting off a fearsome beast.
Welcome to Chinese New Year, which is also known as the Spring Festival. Now, the whole thing started with this legend of a beast called Nian, who, as the story goes, was terrified of the color red and loud noises. But today, it's really a celebration of family, luck, and prosperity that's so important it causes Chunyoin, which is, get this, the largest annual human migration on the entire planet, as hundreds of millions of people travel to be with their families.
The rituals here have this really beautiful logic to them. So before the new year arrives, you sweep your floors to get rid of all the bad luck from the past year. But, and this is crucial, you cannot sweep on New Year's Day because you might sweep away the new good luck that's just arrived. The celebration is all about the reunion dinner, where families eat dumplings shaped like old gold ingots for prosperity, and elders give children these red envelopes, hongbao, filled with money. Then at midnight, firecrackers just erupt everywhere to scare off that ancient beast Nian for another year.
So our final festival of light is one celebrated both religiously and culturally by billions of people, Christmas. And while it commemorates the birth of Jesus, a lot of its most loved traditions, like bringing evergreen trees inside and decorating with lights, are actually deeply connected to much older pagan winter solstice rituals. And those were all about one thing: bringing life and light into the darkest, coldest part of the year. You know, the buildup is such a huge part of the magic. You have the 4 weeks of Advent leading up to the day itself, filled with markets and decorating. And in many parts of Europe and Latin America, the main event is actually Christmas Eve, the night of the 24th, with a huge feast and midnight mass. Then, on the morning of the 25th, the focus shifts to generosity and charity, symbolized, of course, by exchanging gifts.
Okay, let's completely shift gears. Our next set of festivals is about something totally different: catharsis. These are celebrations of pure, uninhibited, joyful release, where for just a few days, the normal rules of society are completely thrown out the window.
And honestly, you will not find a better example than Holi, India's festival of colors. It marks the arrival of spring, sure, but way more importantly, it marks a day where all social structures completely dissolve. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, young or old, friend or a total stranger. For one day, everyone is equal, and everyone is fair game.
So you have to understand, Holi is really a two-part story. It begins on the first night with Holika Dahan. Huge bonfires are lit right in the streets to symbolize the victory of good over evil, specifically the burning of a demoness named Holika, and people pray that their own internal evils will be destroyed in those flames. But the next morning, That spiritual intensity just gives way to pure, wonderful chaos. This is Rongwali Holi, where the streets erupt in this friendly war of colored powder and water. It's a day you are literally given permission to be a kid again. And that idea of cleansing through chaos, well, it's also at the very heart of Songkran, the Thai New Year. What started as this gentle, respectful ritual of pouring scented water over Buddha statues and the hands of elders has, well, it's evolved into the world's biggest water fight. For 3 days, the entire country basically shuts down for a massive water war, which symbolizes washing away all of the last year's misfortunes so you can start completely fresh.
And of course, you can't have a discussion about joyful release without talking about Rio Carnival, simply called the greatest show on Earth. Its roots are in being one last giant party before the 40 days of fasting and austerity required by Catholic Lent. It has since become the planet's biggest party, with an incredible 2 million people flooding the streets every single day.
But what's so interesting is that there are kinda two very different carnivals happening at the same time. First, you have the Blocos. These are the free, chaotic, and totally democratic street parties, where literally anyone can just join in and dance. Then you have the main event, the Sambadrome Parade. This is a super high-stakes, formal competition where elite samba schools who've practiced all year long get one single chance to perform for the judges. It is a complete sensory overload of rhythm, color, and passion. And you know, this whole idea of letting go looks different everywhere you go. At Munich's Oktoberfest, release is found in Gemütlichkeit, this uniquely German feeling of coziness and good cheer, helped along by about 7 million liters of beer. But in the Venice Carnival, release was historically found in anonymity. By wearing a mask, a servant could party with a nobleman, and for a few precious days, those class distinctions just vanished.
All right, for a final theme, let's quiet things down a bit. The energy shifts from chaotic joy to a more quiet reflection. These are festivals that focus on gratitude, on faith, and, most beautifully, on keeping that connection with those who came before us. Let's start with Eid al-Fitr, the feast of breaking the fast. For 1.9 billion Muslims, this day marks the end of Ramadan, which is a month of intense fasting and spiritual discipline. You can think of Eid as this beautiful, direct reward from God for their devotion, a moment of really profound gratitude and relief.
So the day itself is really structured around 3 core pillars. Before any celebration can even begin, a mandatory charity called Zakat al-Fitr has to be paid, and this ensures that even the poorest members of the community can eat and celebrate. Then, just after sunrise, millions gather for an incredibly powerful unified Eid prayer, and from there, the day is all about family, visiting relatives, enjoying sweet dishes, and giving children gifts of cash known as Eid.
And finally, we arrive in Mexico for Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. Now, this is maybe one of the most misunderstood festivals out there. It blends Aztec tradition with Catholicism. And let me be clear, this is not a sad or scary occasion. It's a joyful celebration built on the belief that for one night, the veil between the living and the dead gets very thin, and our ancestors can return to visit us. And to welcome them home, families build these beautiful altars, or ofrendas, right in their houses. They'll decorate them with photos of their loved ones, candles, and their ancestors' favorite foods and drinks. The scent of marigold flowers is said to help guide the spirits home. And later, families move the party to the cemetery, where they clean the grave sites, share meals, play music, and tell stories about their loved ones late into the night. It's a reunion. It is not a funeral. So when you step back and look at it all, 10 festivals spanning the entire globe, and whether it's through light or color or water or prayer, you start to see that they are all, in their own unique way, searching for the exact same thing: a deeper connection. A connection to family, to community, to faith, and to our own past. It's just this incredible reminder that despite all our differences, the language of celebration is one we all instinctively understand. I guess the only question left is, which one will you join next?